What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Good Game Reviews. Here to do another game review. Week 15, Patriots at Bengals. Final score 34-13. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the good. Uh, well, I wouldn't necessarily call this good. Tom Brady's pretty much had kind of a off season, at least compared to his numbers. But he definitely didn't do anything to put the team in jeopardy this past game. 15 as far as completions, 29 attempts, only 128 yards, so low numbers by his standards. 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, average 4.4, and a passer rating of 86.6, which again, below his standards. As far as rushing, the level of opponent doesn't really give you a good gauge on how the running game is, going in the right direction or if it's going in the wrong direction. The running game has been what it is, which is pretty much like stagnant, but Sony Michel had a pretty good game against the Bengals. 19 carries, 89 yards, average 4.7 on the ground, had a long of 12. Burkhead pretty much only had the one touchdown score. He only had the only rushing score as far as the Patriots go. 53 yards, 6 carries, average 8.8 on the ground. Had the last big run, just pretty much closed out the game, the 33-yarder. But the rushing game is what it is. And that's not really, there's nothing else that's going to come in and pretty much change that. They're just going to have to work with what they got. So anybody expecting the Patriots to go into these last few games and into the postseason showing off this, spectacular running game like they did last season, probably not the game you're going to see. It's most likely going to be short of a mixture of getting the wide receivers involved in terms of the running game, which I'm going to bring up next. Speaking of the wide receivers, we have to talk about N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry, well, let me go ahead and bring up his numbers first. 4 targets, 2 receptions, 15 yards, average only 7.5. and 1 touchdown. So it's obvious that N'Keal Harry is pretty much the answer as far as what the Patriots are looking for going into the playoffs. You look back at the Cowboys game where he had the only score of the game. You look back at the Chiefs game where he had the score that was taken away by the refs. You look at what he did in this game in terms of him running the ball. Also, he had 2 carries. He averaged 12 yards, had 22 yards overall. He's going to get implemented more into this offense, and I think they're finally seeing what this guy could do. Things that we saw him do in Arizona, as far as just making plays with the ball in his hands. The yak. All of those things that we saw that people go and they watching the Arizona highlights and all of that. Those are things that we're pretty much going to see going into these next final games and into the postseason. N'Keal Harry getting more involved. So I feel like that's pretty much the direction that they're going to go in. But as far as this game goes, nothing really spectacular, but just his overall performance. It was very nice to see, even if it was against the Bengals. James White, also 4 targets, 3 receptions, 49 yards, average 16.3, and also had the touchdown, the first touchdown of the game. Nothing really to say about James White. James White is James White. And as far as the receiving game, he's going to be a factor in it. So that's just what it is. The defense. Now, that is really what I wanted to get into. Only two guys that I really wanted to shout out, but I'm gonna go ahead and give the defense its whole, like the defense as a whole, is credit. Even though they kind of started off a little slow, they allowed the Bengals to pretty much run it on them a little too much for my liking. Um, Early on in the game, it didn't really look like they could stop anything that the Bengals were doing. As soon as the Patriots, got their first touchdown, Bengals come right back on their drive and just made it look even easier. So uh, definitely something that the defense has to work on as far as starting up the game. But throughout the rest of the game, they were pretty much solid. And J.C. Jackson, if it's one thing J.C. Jackson can do, he can track a ball. And he did it once again in this game. Had two interceptions, three total. He had the three total tackles. He had two interceptions. Uh, and speaking of interceptions, Stephon Gilmore. Uh, I think we can pretty much say it right now. Defensive Player of the Year, Stephon Gilmore. Two total tackles, two interceptions. First interception was pretty much one of the best one in my opinion. He pretty much just he's with his receiver the whole time, the whole route. As soon as the ball pass, he jumps in the air, snags it down with one hand into his body, lands on the ground. Boom. First interception of the game. Second interception, he sees the route right from the beginning, knows where the ball's going. As soon as Dalton passes the ball, he breaks on it, snags the ball, runs it back for another pick six. This is his second pick six of the season. Second two interception game. Almost had a third, but he fought for that one. He pretty much turned into a defender at that point, but almost had a third. So not Nikhil, but Stephon Gilmore is playing like the best cornerback in the league. We knew it coming into the season that he was the best cornerback in the league, and now there's no mistaking it. There's no questioning it. He is the best cornerback in the league, and you can even go and check the numbers as far as just far as like different coverage stats. He leads cornerbacks in all of those stats. So it just feels good to have some really good secondary players. Really does feel good. Um, as far as special teams goes, um, we had the one special teams turnover. Matthew Slater, he's always involved in some. If there's some special teams madness going on, Matthew Slater's going to be involved. So even though he doesn't really get any credits on the stat sheet, I would give him some credits as far as him being disruptive and making Erickson a little nervous, and him muffing that ball, and Bethel coming in and jumping on it, and that was pretty much the only fumble recovery that the Patriots had on the game. It didn't come from the defense; it came from the special teams. Nick Folk. If anybody knows me, they know that I'm not a big Nick Folk fan. Never been a big Nick Folk fan. I remember watching him during that Tampa Bay game where it was pretty much like, all right, I would definitely not like to have this guy on my team. Like, if anything makes you feel good about having Gostkowski, it's that you do not want a guy like Nick Folk on your team. If any team is just looking at their kicker and like, well, at least we don't have Nick Folk. Well, now we have Nick Folk, but Nick Folk is actually doing good. I mean, he's not. I mean, we seen a game where he kind of like looked like himself, but as far as this game goes, he made his field goals. He made a 40-yarder, which surprised me. He had 2 field goals he had to make. He made them all. He had 4 extra points that he had to make. He made them all. He had the long of 46. So yeah, I mean, can't really throw any shade on Nick Folk. As much as people want to, can't really do it. I mean, he got the job done. So As far as the bad goes, only really a few points that I had to get into, but there there are some important points, and there's some things that we've seen throughout the whole season, and I don't really think they're gonna go away anytime soon. It's just some things that the Patriots are just gonna have to overcome instead of just completely wipe out because we're too deep into the season where we can just say, oh, they got to do this and change that, and then boom, we'll be gone. No, these are some things that have been seen throughout each of these games, and it's just something that we have to deal with. First of all, I want to talk about how they got off to a slow start. At one point, you're looking at the game, and it is 10-7. The Bengals are leading, and after the Patriots, just crap out on one drive, the Bengals come back, and all of a sudden they're in Patriots territory, and it's looking like they're either going to kick a field goal and go up 13-7, or they're going to score again and go up 17-7, which would have been even worse. And it's like you're looking at this and it's like, is this really happening? Are we really about to be down possibly 10 points to the Cincinnati Bengals? And the defense, finally snaps into place and it does its job. Also, a shout out to Danny Shelton. I wanted to give a shout out to Danny Shelton. Before I go on, I just remembered Danny Shelton. He had the amazing 2 stops, stopped them on the 3rd and 1, stopped them again in the back on the 4th and 1. Danny Shelton, you're the man. But as far as just the slow starts, I mean, yeah, I think that's just something they're going to be dealing with as far as the season goes along. And funny, I just got through shouting out Danny Shelton, but now I got to talk about this run defense, which throughout the season has just been. If there's anything that this defense can't do, and they can do a lot, if there's anything they can't do is stop the run, because we seen it. And if any team has any sort of a running game, they're going to move the ball pretty well against us. And that was no exception with Joe Mixon. It looked like for a while it was going to be the Joe Mixon game, and he was just going to run it down our throats the whole time. But luckily, it wasn't that game. The Patriots, they was able to make some stops. But really, the magic really came from the secondary. It was nothing too spectacular that the defensive line was doing. Most of the magic was coming from the secondary, being able to lock these defenders down, making them have a really bad day. Stephon Gilmore locking down Boyd and anybody else that he had to cover at the time. Really, the secondary who had the magic. Not so much the defensive line. Not so much, sometimes the linebackers were having trouble. As much as we love Jamie Collins, he was missing tackles, and it was just a weird thing to see. So this run defense, it definitely has some. It's had its struggles throughout the season, and it's just tightening up those certain moments that they'll just have to work on, because right now it doesn't really look like they're going to be able to do anything about that. It just looks like, all right, when it comes to these certain moments, when it comes to these 3rd and 1s and 4th and 1s and stuff like that, and these short yardage situations where we have to get them off the field, we're going to have to clamp down and just get in there and do the best we can and stop them so we can get the ball back into the offense's hands. So that's pretty much what they have to do. As far as the last point that I wanted to go over, another thing that I've noticed, time of possession. We haven't really been winning the time of possession battle as we used to in recent seasons past, and that goes back to the struggles of the offense. I mean, when you can't move the ball, when you have these multiple 3 and outs, and you have all these players dropping passes, and the offensive line breaking down at certain moments, and not being able to run the ball pretty far. You get things like this. You lose the time of possession battle. Now, luckily, you have a defense who, at certain moments, will just come out of nowhere and get you a necessary turnover, and you're lucky you have that. But you also want to be able to move the ball a little bit better, and this is just something that we've also seen through multiple games. And it's just something that they're gonna have to deal with. It's looking like it's basically gonna be all right. The defense, when it comes down to it, and it looks like they're about to score, we're really gonna need you to clamp these guys up, get in their face, and make a play on the ball. And that's pretty much looks like what they've become. Just all right, defense, we're counting on you now. Please turn this ball over because it's obvious that we're not going to be able to just drive the ball down the field like we used to. We're not going to be able to take the ball and drive it down the field 80 yards or 90 yards or something like that. So, yeah, it's time possession. So, I mean, other than that, I'm nothing really else to talk about. I mean, we got 2 games left. Next game is the Saturday game, the 3:30 game against the Bills, which will be in Gillette Stadium. And then right after that, last game of the season, you have the Dolphins in Gillette. So if there's anything to hold on to or any hope, is that these last 2 games are against divisional opponents at home late in the season in December. So there. If there's anything you want to hold on to, then there's that. But yeah, as far as that goes, that's about it. Really nothing else to really go over. Watch out for my next prediction video, which is going to be on the Bills. Unlike I usually do, I'm not going to be able to do it on Saturday. Probably going to have to do it on the Friday because it's the day before the game, which will actually work out for me. Because as far as my schedule and everything, it'll actually work out a little bit better than having to do it on a Saturday. So hey, that's pretty cool. And then you don't have to wait on it that long. So works out for everybody. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, I'm out.